And I'm going to share with you my screen. Since last week, we had, instead of our regular meeting, we had a Q&A, and we had just started this presentation. So today I'm going to very quickly just um, recap a little bit about what we did. So we are talking about self-awareness and how we cannot go through this process of inner transformation, self-awareness without sincerity. We mentioned the importance of that ancient Greek aphorism, the know thyself. We explained that although this phrase is mostly attributed to Socrates, we know that Socrates used this phrase, but historians say that not necessarily it belongs to him, that most probably he saw that on the temple of Delphi in Greece. And we talked about the question that we have in the Spirit's book 919 and 919a, that tells us about, the response from the spirits in terms of finding ways that could be more effective to us actually go on the opposite direction of, bad deeds, negative things, evil things. And the famous advice that St. Augustine gives to us as a spirit in the Spirit's book, telling us that he used to do the following. Every night before, going to sleep, he would make an assessment of about his day, and about what he did, that he could consider to be a good thing, what he did that maybe not so much, and what was really bad. In this way, he could really make a sincere self-assessment and working on his personal improvement. And about the comment that Kardec compliments, saying that in order for us to go to this process, we have to remember that there is no use in deceiving ourselves. So when we start making this assessment about what we did, if that action was good or not, the answer should be a simple categorical yes or no. No excuses, which is something that normally we will say, oh, that's because I had such a terrible night's sleep, and I was so irritated, somehow cranky, and that's why I gave a bad reply, or I was not nice. And so again, when we are talking, and I always going to be repeating that, I hope you don't get tired about it. When we are going through this process, we don't need to share all the news with people. Okay, this is a very individual, personal thing for us to do. So I don't need to scream out loud saying, oh, I just found out that I have such and such imperfections that I need to correct. No, I mean, this is for you. This is for us to be able to be very conscious about what we are. In this process and in all this program of inner transformation, and I do hope that I manage to finish the book in English by the end of this year. We are actually going to be utilizing the Sermon on the Mount, that contains 7 of the Beatitudes plus 2. So it's 9, but the first 7 talks about virtues. The last 2 talks about more the realization of those virtues already. And also use Benjamin Franklin list of 13 virtues because they go along with this rule of conduct, so to say, that Jesus brought to us. And what is amazing about the Beatitude, the Sermon on the Mount, is that uh, it is accepted broadly. We have comments, for instance, from Gandhi saying that if we were to lose all the wholly important written things in the world, and only the Sermon of the Mount was the only survival of all this, we wouldn't need anything else. So as we see, the Buddhists also consider, because we go in the working on the same truth. So the case of Benjamin Franklin, for those who do not know, he wanted to achieve moral perfection, and morality was a way of behaving that resulted in a balanced life composed of all the best possible human experiences. And as we know, he's quite an achiever, and working in distant, very different areas. But he was also worried about his own personal improvement. So when he made a list of these virtues, he wanted to, as it say here, to separate right from wrong, delineating boundaries about around everyday activities, so that people could avoid unhealthy trains of thought. From his own experience, Franklin passed on an important lesson when he said that contrary habits must be broken and good ones acquired and established before we can have any dependence on a steady, uniform rectitude of our conduct. So what is interesting about this whole thing is that when he did that, um, he was, I believe, in his early 20s, very early 20s, and he did that to himself. Exactly what we are talking about here. Our goal here is not for us to start our process of self-awareness and inner transformation and start seeing the imperfections of others. Okay, we have to focus on ours. We have the ones to be able to assess ourselves, to understand ourselves, and to work on it. Okay, if along the way we are also seeing others, it is not our business. Even when we are talking about our children, blood of our blood, I mean, it's just blood, right? It's not, spirits are spirits, individual. So even when we are talking about blood relatives, I mean, each one of us have to do our own work. And in this case, Benjamin Franklin was very actually on top of that. He said he did that to himself. He said, well, if I wanted to be a good person, what should I do? And so he made this list. And along the way, actually, the list had only 12 virtues. And he was with a friend sometime, and he had like a chart. And today we even have apps for that. If you look for, an app, 13 Benjamin Franklin 13 virtues, you can do your own chart of, a self-assessment. And when he showed his friend, his friend was very impressed with what he did, and said, well, I think this is wonderful. This is wonderful work. And, but he said, I think you missed or you forgot the most important one. And then he asked, which one would be this one that I forgot that you say that is the most important one? And then the friend said, humility. Can you imagine the the face of Ben Franklin when he heard humility, right? I mean, that's the hardest one for us to go with. And and of course he added humility, and he even made a comment saying that humility is such a trick and difficult virtue for us to acquire, that when you say, oh my God, I was so humble today, you no longer are. Right? So that's the thing we have to, to understand about humility. So in order for us to go through this process, and this sincerity is actually one of the Benjamin's for Franklin 12 virtues, when he says, upon analyzing ourselves, is a must for it is not to try to deceive ourselves or by being condescending with our mistakes, that we acquire self-knowledge and thus are able to work on the areas that need improvement. So what we have been explaining so far. So we're going to stop for a bit now and see if you have comments or questions or share something. Okay, so I'll go ahead. I understand that sometimes, those studies, they lead us more to think than actually to verbalize, but let's go ahead. So how can you know ourselves better? And then we have this, that the maxim, don't know thyself, looks good on paper. For all of us that have already tried to do that, all of a sudden you think you are on top of something, and you realize that no, you still have a long way to go, or you see strange behaviors that were provoked by different situations, that were not a common thing in our lives, and then it provokes reactions that when we analyze, we will say, well, I don't like this reaction, but this is me, this is who I am. But those who have tried it know that one of the greatest hurdles is being able to see oneself objectively and sincerely. We all have built-in biases about who and what we are, and these biases can color our self-images. It is very difficult to see ourselves as others see us. We often cannot be objective about our emotional selves because we have built up defenses that hinder accurate self-evaluation. So this is a, a kind of self-protection that we have, this blind spot. Okay, we cannot necessarily realize, because of this process that we are being condescending, are always trying to explain our behaviors, even if it to ourselves, instead of like I say, look in the mirror, and or not necessarily say to yourself, wow, that was bad, or that was good. Right? Because we have to celebrate the good things as well. Um, with all this that we are talking here, it doesn't mean that we have to pay attention to everything that other people are saying about us. But instead of immediately discard, we should pay attention to what they're saying and try in a process to see if what they're saying is true or not, even when we are talking about good things. Okay, there are many people that do not value themselves, and they keep on comparing themselves to others in a way that they many times will think they have no value. And which is not true. We will always find people that are better than us and worse than us. And but the idea here is us. What are we doing to to improve, and also to see the value that we already have? Because if we do not go through there, we may not find the right motivation to keep on going. If you never see your accomplishments, if you never celebrate your even small accomplishments, how will find motivation to keep going in this process? And listen, I really like to emphasize that, especially for us that have been studying also some of the books from Joanna de Angelis, the spirit Joanna de Angelis, that touches a lot on this uh, transcendental aspect of psychology, always inviting us to self-improvement. This is the key point of spiritism. Okay, so if it seems strange to you, what is she talking about? Self-awareness, transformation, any other spiritualist or philosophies, they talk about the same thing. Yes, we all have to talk about the same thing because this is the ultimate goal of every human being. We will not see the changes in the world unless we make this change ourselves, like Gandhi used to say. So this is what is going to change not only ourselves, but all the environment. This is what is going to bring us happiness. This is what is going to help us, even when we are just thinking about the phenomena in terms of spiritist phenomena, the communication with spirits, all of that. We are here working on our inner antennas. So energy, the more or the better my energy is, the easier is going to be for me to establish contact, and also, of course, contact with high elevated spirits. Because truth be told, we are not that much interested in just hearing what people that let or spirits that less know than ourselves have to say, right? Of course, that there is a purpose to that. We help them, we learn from them, we gather motivation, we enlighten ourselves. But the goal here is really to be capable of doing that. So the whole process of spiritism is actually to call our attention to this, for spirits to come and say, listen, death is not a reality. You go on, you reincarnate, you have new chances. And how can you improve the quality of your immortal life? By making yourself better. And then you will have more achievements. Yes, Ale, go ahead.
Hi, you guys. I hope you're all doing okay. Um, I am hearing all that you're saying, and I'm just questioning myself. Like, well, now I understand why so many people give up on trying to get better or on following the teachings, because it's not easy, and it's always, it seems like we are, I mean, not we, I am always failing. And it becomes very frustrating because you're trying to do the best that you can. And sometimes, and we're not perfect, and we'll make mistakes, and that will happen. And then you will just wonder, like, oh my God, I thought I was doing so good. And then I did this that didn't go along with the teachings or whatever I believe. And then you start doubting the whole everything. So I think we are very brave to keep coming back here every week and trying to learn more and more, to try to practice. But I understand that sometimes it's very difficult.
And that's fantastic, Ali. And the image that was coming to my mind, I was beginning to visualize when we were talking, is like we want to understand the ocean just by look at the surface. And this is what we have been doing. Like, okay, I know the ocean. I know what an ocean is, but really? Just looking at the surface, at the waves, at the color of the ocean. I mean, we all know nowadays, thank God, but because we have the device for that, not everything, but we know a lot, that there is so much life, that there is so much more that we have to understand about the ocean. So it's like this. We look at this, and this is what this last slide is actually showing us. It's like we put a mask on ourselves, and we are so used to see ourselves in this way that we don't make room to actually see what is going on and go through this process. And you are absolutely right. This is one thing that everyone that is looking for a spiritual path is sometimes, you know, we all would like, okay, I would like that as well, to have shortcuts, okay, to know people that would say, oh, if you do that, I guarantee immediate results. This is not a reality. There are no shortcuts for this. Either we do the work or we don't. It's like, you know, if I grab a babe 2 months old and say, you know, just stand up and walk. We know that's not going to happen, right? There is a whole process of inner growing, growth, and the muscles being prepared with crawling, etc., 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 turning on their little cradles. That will make this happen, but it's a whole process, right? And in this case, when we look for spirituality, just, you know, interested in the phenomena, I mean, or looking for shortcuts, or looking to still keep on blaming others for everything that happened to us and all those kind of things, we are just on the surface. We are not allowing ourselves to go to the root and actually do something about it and change everything and get to know our things better. And it's a very difficult process. Um, and sometimes very frustrating, because I may even accept that, okay, there are no shortcuts, I have to do the hard work. But how long is it going to take? Like at the child, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? No. I mean, 2 more hours, and then 2 hours later, are we there yet? 2 more hours, right? Yeah. So, and not seeing immediate results can be frustrating, but it doesn't mean that they are not happening. Anyone would like to say something? Yes, Sonia. And
It's a long process, and every time when we fail, because I believe happen with all of us, then but it's still a process of learning. The problem many times is I know I'm not the old woman anymore. I walk ahead steps, but the people who around us cannot see this. And many times, oh, you are, you believe you are learning, or you said you are a better person now. It's not true. See, you fail again. And then it's not, and this process not help us, anyone support us in this situation, then we need to be in our mind. This is a process. Yes, it's true. I fail, but I'm still step ahead, because now I know a little bit more. I can see my mistakes. In the past, I was blind. I could not see my mistakes. And then how I can work on my mistakes if I couldn't see. Then it means for me, I'm steps ahead. I walk in this path already.
yeah.
I'm improving.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, not necessarily will be that visible. Let's see what Sally, she raised her hand.
Yes, I was actually, it's very much like Sonia was saying. I don't have a sense of, I almost feel the fact that one's going to reincarnate and that this is a process, I can't get to the end instantaneously. So every step I make just is a step in hopefully in the right direction. It's not a race I have to run. So I don't see I think it makes it easier on myself to know it's a process, and all I can do is walk that path and say I'm aiming in the right direction. Because if I judge every failure as being so that I've let myself down, or I've failed, then I think it's just a way of rather just saying, at least I'm walking in that direction. I'm doing my best, and it's a process. It's not getting to the finish line.
And Sally, what were you when you were saying that, I was remembering that famous statement by Thomas Edison that after, I don't know, almost 10,000 times that he failed to manage to work on the electricity, he finally got it. And when people would say, but you failed so many times, and he said no, right? So it's the same thing sometimes, because we can be very cruel to ourselves and to others. Of course, it's even easier than to ourselves, but to ourselves as well. And we also judge our failures very harshly. And sometimes they are just, the climbing steps to help us, to really succeed. Again, the image of the cocoon and the butterfly trying. Can you imagine how, I mean, we can think that a butterfly has conscience, right? Thinking, oh my God, now this time I'm going to break this cocoon, and no, and this time I'm going to break this cocoon, and no, and so forth, so on, so forth, and not understanding that the only way that the butterfly is going to break the cocoon is actually with this series of failures, according to her narrow point of view, that is making it possible to acquire sufficient whatever is necessary, our aerodynamics and strength, to when finally breaking the cocoon, she can fly. So this is what we have to understand as well. Perhaps some of those failures, they are part of this process. And we have, okay, I know, like Thomas Edison say, 10,000 ways that didn't work.
Yeah.
Now I know the one that works. Okay, let's keep on moving on that.
I just want to say, I look at this human experience as I've decided to reincarnate to experience human school. And the Earth School that we're all in, it's the biggest school, and we're participating in Earth School to learn how to become better humans. And from being a teacher in the classroom, I used to, rather than look at the students' mistakes as failures, I used to look at it as a teaching opportunity or a teaching moment. Oh, now we know we need to practice that a little bit more. Oh, now we know we're going to practice that a little bit more. And when I look at my spiritual growth, I've learned things I needed to practice a little bit more. When you go to bed at night and you evaluate your day, you say, thank you very much for the day. I got really good at this, this, and this, but I still need help with this, this, and this. And then you wake up in the morning, I do anyway, present my day to spirit, and I say, okay, this is what my day looks like. Please help me get better at this, 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 and this.
Yeah, that's exactly what we have to do. Own our lives, and sometimes we just go according to, let's see what the day brings me. No, not necessarily, right? We have to plan, we have to achieve things, and this is one way of doing as well. So let's keep on going a little bit more here. So our insights about ourselves usually contain a number of convenient blind spots. The self-actualized individual who can speak freely and honestly of his or her faults and abilities is rare. And again, it doesn't mean that we have to do it, okay? And knowing oneself is actually a lifelong journey, and a journey that should be embarked upon with total trust in the personal observations and personal experiences we have experienced so far. I think that, this is a whole process. Having gone to, some of this process myself, sometimes, I have those insights that come from experiences that I had in childhood and that is impacting me now, that only now, decades after, I'm being able to, to connect the dots. So even when you are the protagonist of your own story and is living, sometimes to understand how it's going to develop and how it's going to make you who you are is quite hard, and to understand this behavior. And this is one thing that we have to do here. So it seems to be to our advantage to discover what is under our mental hoods. But how can we do so when so much of our mental life is unavailable for introspection? First, we can try to be objective observers of our own behavior. We can try to see ourselves through the eyes of other people, or at least consider possibility that they have picked up on something about us that we have missed. And we can try to learn about ourselves through specialized scientific readings. Most of us pay attention to scientific discoveries related to our body. For example, smoking is bad for your health, but few pay attention to discoveries related to our inner self. So again, the invitation here is do not be afraid. I think this practice of, okay, let's try to analyze myself today, as if I were just the audience of my life, and truly analyze what happened. And sometimes, not only through scientific readings, but religious, philosophical readings, we can, which is actually what Spiritism invites us, and the works of the spirits, such as Joana de Angelis as well, invite us to do, to actually take a deep dive in ourselves, in our own ocean, right? And do that. And we talked in the first day that we were discussing about it, to reserve part of our day to do this introspection. That's why the practice of meditation is so widely accepted and actually emphasized in so many philosophies, because it doesn't mean just to read yourself necessary from all the thinking process, but to concentrate on you, on your the desires, on your, your actions, everything that is going on with you, and not necessarily just like we said, be more like a spectator to your own life than actually participating in it consciously. Okay, any comments or question? Yes, Marlene, go ahead.
I think patience ought to be a virtue. I've been trying so long to be successful in meditation. So finally, when I had 2 or 3 times and I really connected, I thought I had it made. But I don't. It's not happening again. So I know I have to be patient, but it's not one of my virtues, I'm afraid.
Mhm. We will be talking, there is one of our presentations that is also about patience, the PAX science, the science of peace. of inner peace. This is what patience means, actually, right? But you're absolutely right, because this is one of the things that we were talking about, this process of self-awareness. I mean, okay, we want this to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen, right? It's an inner process of growing as well, of even being capable of accepting. And this is one of the reasons why we do not advise people, unless it's absolutely necessary, to go into past life therapy, because we can barely deal with what we see in ourselves today. Can you imagine looking back when you were definitely, without exception, worse than you are today? So I always say that sometimes I even would like to eliminate from my life a certain, at least a couple of years, right? The silly years, right? And now I'm going to dive into past lives consciously. We understand that there is a very valid therapeutic process for certain people, but only when the doctors really prescribe it. Unless it is your case, we should not consciously adventure through that. Yes, there are people that will have natural remembrances, but even then, it doesn't mean that we will have the knowledge of all the details. So let's deal with what we have now. That is very much the result as well, what we did in the past. Annette, your hand is raised. I don't know if it's from the other time, or if you wanted to.
It's probably from the other time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I imagine so, but I just wanted to be sure.
I wonder how I can, okay, I need to unraise it.
Yeah, you click at, I think, on the same place.
Did that work? Did I do it right?
No,
No.
not yet. Okay, don't worry.
How do you raise your hand? I haven't figured that one out.
Oh, you can raise it like this as well, that I see as well. But there is a little button, I think is written reactions. And you can go in their reactions, and one of them is written raise your hands. Okay. Let's see now about some aspects of self-knowledge and in terms of self-enhancement and self-verification. Self-enhancement is when a person focuses on positive central traits over negative ones. It's when we are going to be thinking more of ourselves than maybe we truly are. Self-verification, on the other hand, refers to preferring accurate information about the self, whether positive or negative. So the invitation here for us is, instead of going through a process of self-enhancing, just looking of what I have in terms of positive traits, I really go through a process of self-verification. Essentially, it seems that people self-enhance more than they self-verify. For instance, we prefer accurate information about positive traits over negative ones. So when I self-enhance, when I'm just focusing on the good things that I did, and it makes myself feel better about myself, right? I remember being younger and having to go through this, job interviews, when they would ask you about, what are the negative sides that you see in yourself? I always had such a hard time. First, okay. What is my negative side? And then on top of that, I still have to share and say, oh, I'm too lazy. When am I going to get a job if I say that, right? Or I'm very impatient. If people start getting stressed out next to me, I don't know, I'm going to lose my mind. So, but yeah, like we were saying here, this process is a very individual, personal and process. It's not that we have to be announcing that. And this is why another way of, talking about the self-awareness is saying self-verification. Any comments or question? Okay, let's go a little bit more. In order to start processing the changes, we
Sorry,
need.
yes, I do have a question.
Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
What I wanted to ask is it not a good thing though to actually think positively, doesn't it? I mean, and here I'm getting into, I suppose, aspects of the those what they call laws of attraction or whatever that's it's commonly called, that if you actually feel good about yourself, you also are more inclined to do things that are positive and be positive rather than too self-critical. Or does it not really work like that?
Yeah, there is a difference here, Sally, in this whole purpose, the whole purpose of this process. One is for you to start only looking for your imperfections, for the negative traits, and delaying yourself in it with self-pity, extremely harsh criticism. This is not what we are talking about here. We are talking about us, and that's I mean, this is the reason why as well we always say, celebrate the little things that you have conquered, the hurdles that you have crossed. And because many times we don't see that, we don't celebrate that, we just are so much critical with ourselves. So I believe a lot in the power of, being positive. Since my childhood, I would devour the works of Norman Peale, that was a pastor, the first one that wrote about the power of positive thinking. And that I remember from my early teens. I was into that already. It really changed my life. And so it's not about us delaying in the imperfection, but saying, okay, it is there, but I'm capable of doing. And so, you will be motivating yourself. You will be doing this work of self-affirmation, the affirmation, okay, I'm not a patient person, but each day I'm going to work a little bit towards this direction. And yay, I managed to do that. Today, not so much, but again, I start tomorrow. So there is a difference in being oblivious to what we are, because I just want to attract good things, and what we really are. Here is, I mean, I can pretend that there is nothing wrong with me, but it's not going to stop being there. And so I don't know if I made myself clear. It's
Yeah.
If anyone would like to contribute with something. Okay. And I understand that is a very hard process, because we may have in all this process, it's easier for us to have the tendency of not appreciating what we have conquered already, and just look at what is missing, which is our basic behavior. And we have to change this pattern. It's very much when Sonia was saying about how people will see her. She's doing all of that for years. She's definitely improved, because we all are improving, but not necessarily people will pay attention, because, once they label us, it's very difficult for them to delay on us, on analyzing us, to see really changes. And sometimes even if they say they see you in well, they may say, oh, she's in a good day, and not thinking that it was something that, no, it's not just a good day. This is who I am today, right? Because we have this tendency of being so self-centered. And okay, so the process here is be happy with everything you are conquering. Keep on aiming each time higher, bringing this positivity into your lives. I can do it. I will do it. Is my destiny. Is our destiny. There is no way we are not going to improve. The only ones that are delaying our self-improvement, it's us, because of that, because we don't believe in ourselves, because we are too comfortable in this situation. Remember that story that I told you about? It's actually a friend of mine that told me that happened to him, and he went to the gas station, and there was a dog there, and the dog was like, um, I forgot how to say this word in English, like a little crying, the whimpering, or how do I say that? Whining and yeah, whining and then while he was there, he could see the dog whining and whining and whining, and finally he asked the someone there at the gas station, what is happening with this dog? And then they said, well, he's laying over a nail. And then he said, well, and why is he still there? Because it's not hurting enough for him to do something about it. So sometimes we get so comfortable in our situation that is not nice, but it's still not hurting enough for us to take control. And so this is why be positive, believe that you can do it, bring all this positivity into your lives, celebrate the little victories that you have on the day-to-day basis, but do not feel afraid to look at what is still necessary to be doing and saying, okay, I don't have this today, but look at in this list, in the list of what I have today, and they changed sides, right? They were part of what I didn't have yesterday or in the past. So that's the idea, but I know it's not an easy process. Okay, so in order to start processing the changes we need to see in our lives, it's essential that we find ways to increase the amount of self-knowledge we have. If we look inside, we can see our inner world of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. As we see them, we understand them. Additionally, we are able to recognize what leads us to feel sad, happy, and even spiritual. Using this assessment technique, we can begin to program our inner transformation. So we can work on what needs to be changed in our actions, in our lives, and in relation to others. We can unlock our inner secrets and embark on an incredible journey of self-transformation. But it's crucial to remove certain concepts that are rooted in ourselves that put us down, such as, I'll never get better, I'll never get what I want, or I'll never be happy. Whatever we work on improves. Most often we find what we're looking for, but we need to recognize it when we find it. Those who believe they will never find it often miss what is right from under their noses. And just for us to finish today, I look at this little story here. A man is sitting on the roof of his house as the whole village is flooded, including his house. The water level is still rising. A man comes on a boat and asks him to get in, but he says he's waiting for God to rescue him. A little later, an helicopter circles around and drops a rope and a chair for him to get on board, but the man says He wants only God to rescue him. The man drowns, goes to heaven, and asks God, "Where were you when I needed you?" God answers, "I sent you a boat and an helicopter. Where were you?" Right. So I love this story, because many times this is also something like, when a door closes, another one opens. Let's look at this other door. Let's, deal with what we cannot control and just move in the direction of doing good things and not expecting that a miracle is going to occur. And listen, in this situation, when we consider a boat and an helicopter is already a miracle. So God has to find, or the creator, the on high, has to find ways in our material life to bring answers to us, to bring solutions to what we need to our problems. It's up to us to pay attention. And I think this is, if there is a will, you'll find a way to get there or as close to it as possible. If there is a will to change, you can most certainly change. If you lack the will, nobody can show you how. Remember, it's easier to change ourselves than someone else, but we must be willing to change. So again, it's an inner process. And with that, I mean, we still have a few minutes if you want to comment or to say something.
The last paragraph. It's easier to change ourselves than the others. Mm-hmm. In our daily life practice, we always believe it's easy to change the others because we believe the others are responsible for the bad things happen. And then our speech usually is change the others and blind to see our mistakes and what we need to improve in ourselves.
Yes. Anyone else? Okay, yeah, that's the problem, right? And this is not going to make us move forward. We have to take care of our own business. No one can do that for us. I think we have plenty of lessons in many ways, many philosophies today, even in human laws, that kind of indicates us the right path to go. It's just a matter of, us doing that. Stop whining while sit under the nail, under a nail, right? I know, over a nail, and just keep on moving and do this. And just mentioning what Sally said, it's very important for us to find joy in our lives, in what we are already. Okay, let's praise ourselves a little more. Again, for the good or for the bad, we don't have to spread this to the world. I mean, it's just you saying, I know how hard it was for me to be, what I am today, what steps I had to take, and all this process that I'm taking now. And very much like Seth said, we are not in a race against anyone but ourselves. Yes, Sally, go ahead. You open your mic, please.
The thing that I find a little more difficult is it's very easy to know on sort of an ethic or a moral point of view as to what's appropriate and what's good. There's a measure because, okay, it's right. But from a personality point of view, where one has a certain personality that responds to situations in different ways, we also individualistic, or all are so different as individuals. and then to know the appropriateness of behavior considering the role that we have to play in society, it isn't as clear to me, because you need the person who's going to say, be the follower, be the leader, be the initiator of something, or be the passive person. Those are much more the kind of qualities where I find the appropriateness of what one's aiming for to be far more difficult to work out. As I say, the right and wrong, good and bad, the moral and the ethical, and the whether it's sexual behavior or alcohol or whatever, those things are easy and clear to me. But one's reaction in situations isn't, because we can't all be passive and be neutral and be loving and giving and kind, because that isn't always appropriate. And do you have any comment on that aspect?
Well, I would have a lot, but I'll say it's just a little bit. This is why, Sally, we're saying that it's a personal process, and we should not be that harsh in judging others and judging ourselves. Understanding immortality, understanding that we have reincarnations, and that we all are growing in different speed and acquiring different experiences according to how we allow ourselves in this process to grow. Evidently, we are going to be different, and we have this the diversity here in terms of moral, ethical values. We are not talking about races, ethnicity, nationalities, language, nothing like that. We are talking about, what you are as a spirit. So we will find people that still would feel more comfortable living under the laws of the 1800s, 1900s than the 21st century. They still are more in sync with that way of thinking, that the way of thinking of the 21st second, as we have people here already that is already thinking and trying to behave for the 22nd century, which are what you're saying. And most commonly they refer to people like this as the change makers. The change makers in their times, they also are known as the troublemakers, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm referring. That's what I'm referring to. Is the people that shift things actually are seen as disruptors, but I don't think they necessarily are.
No, they're not. They're not. I mean, or the majority, or many of them are not. Okay, time will tell. Like,
Yes.
if we look in history, I mean, in this country, right? What happened to Abraham Lincoln? He was murdered because he said no more distinction in terms of races. I mean, this cannot be. We are all human beings. And today, I mean, we applaud him and what he did, even if the solution for that was very painful. We are talking about a war, right? But it was the way of getting there. So all those processes, right, that we went through, and today, and it's incredible, because it seems that we do not learn with history. Instead of giving some credit to people that will bring innovations, we will react exactly as our ancestors, with a lot of skepticism, with criticism, and even if it were in our hands, we would stop this. So yeah, this is still part of our process of evolvement, is a price we have to pay, or those who want to be change makers have to pay, of not necessarily being appreciated on their own time, but they have to go with, and continue acting upon what their conscience dictates.
So that's what I'm asking. So is it that, yes, there's a moral compass, there's an ethical compass, and then there's your conscience, which is associated with your particular personality trait, which indicates you choose a certain route. Is that,
Yes, yes.
would there be sort of 3 aspects to oneself that you need to know? The moral,
of
the ethical,
course.
and then the conscience.
And of course, knowing what I know, okay, I would love everyone to be spiritual today. But what I learned so far, what I know so far, and what is part of me so far knows that I cannot impose that. I cannot just pass a law saying from today on, everyone is going to be nice and spiritual. If you're not, I'm going to put you in jail until you really prove you're not. So I already know this is not good, right? So I have to respect the process of each one. So the more we evolve, the more we not only follow God's or the natural laws, I mean, the laws of of matter that we have here that already, helps us. It has improved it a lot. But also the natural laws, the laws of the universe that is going to be applied else everywhere. But it's not something, uh, like I said, even looking at ourselves today and 20, 30 years ago, what we were, we will say, well, now I understand some certain things. Now I will not behave like I behaved 30 years ago, 20, 30 years ago. And now my conscience is already dictating something different. So there is all this process. But you're right. One of the things, there is a very, just for us to end now, there is I don't remember by heart the number of the question is perhaps 949, something in the 900s of the spirit books. That talks about why what is bad, negative, evil still prevails. And it says because goodness is very shy. So we cannot be shy in positioning ourselves, meaning not being like revolutionaries in the middle of a square shouting out loud, or trying to brainwash or impose things on other, because those things I mean, it's inner growth. You cannot do that. But when people ask or see the way you behave, they are going to be motivated and at least intrigued by your personal morals. But it's hard, it's tricky, because we still are not there. We getting there, but we are already change makers.
Mhm.
Okay,
You?
so